This is the DTV Digest, the podcast that brings you news and reviews of films which didn't make it to the cinema. And now, here's your host, Mike Parkin.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the DTV Digest. I'm your host, Mike Parkin, and joining me tonight is Richard Hawes.
Hello, everyone.
And Stephen Lockridge.
Hello.
This week, we have 6 films that we're going to be looking at, 6 features, kicking off with Scott Adkins in Accident Man, Hitman's Holiday. Then we have Post Mortem, The Spine of Night, Summit Fever, Trafficked, and Mean-Spirited. Our short shot this week is the action-packed Luna. And then we're going to round off with our DTV throwback, Patient Zero. So without further ado, let's crack on. Our first review then is Accident Man, Hitman's Holiday. Mike Fallon, aka the Accident Man, is back, and this time he must beat the top assassins in the world to protect the ungrateful son of a mafia boss, save the life of his only friend, and rekindle the relationship with his maniacal father figure. We didn't get a screener for this one, unfortunately, Rich, but it would have been incredibly churlish of us, being the DTV Digest, not to pass up the opportunity to cover this. Scott Adkins is back, I think is the phrase everyone should be using for this. This is just purely one of his best films, surely.
Yeah, and quite, I mean, I was a bit anxious going in because there'd been such positive buzz about it that I was worried that I might not like it as much as everyone else, but I absolutely do. So I do agree with you. I think they pulled something really out of the bag here, because the first Accident Man, which was 4 years ago, it was a passion project for Scott. He was trying to do something different. He was trying to do something more of himself, and it was a British movie, you know, you know, he got to play a proper British comic book character and stuff, and bring more of the kind of humor that he's interested in. Because when Scott was, when his career was established, you know, we all know him as Boyka. He's this tough, you know, usually with either a Russian or American accents. You know, almost humor is not part of the equation generally. And he's basically reinvented himself by actually, you know, he's taken control of his career. He's put himself on the line and sort of tried to pull this thing together, which works better than anyone could have hoped for. And then, they, you know, 4 years later, they've managed to get a sequel off the ground. And what's great is the first film was made by Jesse Johnson, very established director. And here we've got 2 guys making their feature film debut, very experienced in the world of short films. But, you know, Scott's basically taken a chance on 2 new directors, and they've done him proud. You know, they've together, you know, with Scott and his writer Stu Small, they've just pulled something together that's very collaborative, and it just works so well. And there's lots of different choreographers and stuff involved, lots of great martial artists and martial arts, you know, choreography performers and that involved in the film, which we'll get into. And the whole film has a unique feel to against the first one, but I think it's better, and it's very watchable. It's probably Scott Adkins' most watchable film.
I think so. Yeah, I mean, it's funny because I watched this with my wife, and she didn't enjoy the first one. She didn't like the voiceover element, you know, the fact that we're, you know, the internal monologue that we're getting from the character. So going into this one, she's like, is there going to be another internal monologue? Is he going to tell us everything he's doing, you know? I think they did sort of fine tune it a bit, but obviously there is a lot of it there. So if you know, either you like it or you don't, I guess. Personally, I like it. I think he's very funny. You know, some of the dialogue. Stu Smalls definitely knows, you know, how to make Scott funny. Basically, and put you know, give him the right sort of lines and things. There are some classic moments in this. And they've put together a great cast. You know, it's great to bring back Ray Stevenson as Big Ray. You know, the owner of the pub in the first one. You know, out for kind of a bit of retribution this time round, but you know, he's just such a great presence. You know, Ray Stevenson.
Oh yeah, and he's the way he just sort of there's that part where he starts quoting Shakespeare, and it just works so well, and he's just really giving it his all. I mean, Ray Stevenson is it's just such a commanding presence.
Absolutely. You mentioned there were a number of choreographers on this one. Is that right?
Yeah, so they've taken stuff. They've got some bits from that Tim Mann did that they've incorporated. There's Andy Long came in and did some stuff, and there's a couple, obviously Scott's got his elements in there as well, and I think there's like two other. So it's not like there's one person sort of leading the whole thing. The Kirby brothers. I can't remember which one it is, but he's an experienced stuntman, so he was doing choreography as well, and so it's very much they've pulled together different resources and to work together, and I think that's what kind of makes this film a bit more distinctive. Maybe it's got like a bit more diversity, and that it's not just one particular style. There's Sarah Chang, who we'll get onto. She's got a very particular style. She's a very experienced choreographer and a performer in her own right. So she's probably guided elements of her scenes, I would expect, as well.
Yeah. So it was George. It was George, by the way.
George Kirby. Yeah. Lovely guys, by the way. I mean,
yes.
So I mean, we've met them, and I was watching the after that, because unfortunately there was a screening in London that wasn't able to get to, but I did watch the Art of Action that Scott recorded, especially interviewing all the Kirbys and all the other people involved in the project, and they've I don't know if they pitched for it or they got it, but they got this chance and they've done really well with it, and they're very with a lot of humility. They're perfectly happy to share the glory, whereas somebody else might come along and go, this is my movie and whatever, and they're like, no, this is kind of our movie, it's everyone's movie, it's Scott's movie to a large degree because it's his project, but they've made it their own as well. Andy's kind of made it at least the part that he's involved with is very much an Andy part, which is the conclusion of the film, and I think and they've got all the right people involved with the cinematography and stuff, and the Kirby brothers are involved in the editing. They edited the movie as well, so I mean, and they shot it, so the camera work around the action sequences is really interesting because the camera keeps moving, but not in a really distracting,
it's not shaky cam, is it?
Shaky cam way. No, you can follow it. It's momentum, but it's not ruining the scene, it's adding to it, and that's a very, very difficult trick to pull off, and I think that's something that's also quite unique to this film compared to some of the others, and they've brought elements of that on board, and obviously the Maltese location obviously makes it stand out, makes it feel very different to the first film, which was sort of rainy London basically, and now we've got this very vibrant, almost made me think of like the rise of the Foot Soldier films, how they let's do one where we made in Marbella and stuff like that. It's got that kind of atmosphere, and that kind of, it is that gangster humor, that gangster sort of crime movie humor mentality. I mean, the first one made me think of things like Guy Ritchie. Yes. This one is, I think it's not so much Guy, it is more its own thing. It's not, it doesn't feel like it's trying, and you've got other things like Bobo the Clown, played by Bo Fowler, in there. I watched it twice back to back, and it was it was very easily done. I could easily watch it again.
I want to talk about Bo Fowler for a minute. I mean, we've seen him in at least one short film, two actually. We saw him quite recently in
Red. And Express Delivery, probably. And
Express Delivery is the probably the more well-known one, but Red is absolutely superb. But here, he really brings his acting skills to the fore. We get this sort of very sinister character. The dialogue he has when he first turns up is absolutely superb. This sort of rhyming cadence that he has to his lines. It does put you in mind of Heath Ledger a little bit, but it's definitely its own thing at the same time, because only because what he's saying has that sort of level of menace. But I thought his acting was absolutely superb. The actual fight scene itself was excruciating, and painful,
What's
because his
interesting is
character,
Fowler actually came on quite late. He was I don't know who he replaced, but he came in and they didn't really get much of a chance to prep. So he didn't have as much time as the others to practice that fight scene, to practice the character and everything. So he
it's interesting because they start the film with that scene.
Yeah, in media res, your favorite.
Yeah, I know, and I think that puts a lot of faith in, from the filmmaker's point of view. I think that puts a lot of faith in that scene itself. The fact they said, "Yeah, we got to kick off at this point."
Yeah, it's such a notable scene, such a notable character. It sort of sums it up as you kind of put that on. I mean, that's on the poster, isn't it? And it's like, it was like, what? He's fighting a clown? It's just, that's the mad comic book side of it. And that scene alone, we'll get onto the action in a minute, but the action scenes go on for ages. And this one in particular is kind of one of those scenes that's in stages. So you get like one, it's like 3 action scenes in one, because you get like a confrontation, then there's kind of a break, and then they go again, and then there's a break, and there's lots of stuff happening. They introduce other aspects through the course of the confrontation, including the so you got the psychological aspects with the character, with Bobo, and also his the way he responds to pain, which becomes a key thing as the sequence is unfolding, ending with quite an amusing finale.
Absolutely. As well as Bo, of course, as you mentioned, we've got Andy Long, who plays Oyumi. He was really impressive as well. That whole sequence at the end. He
reminded me a lot of when he turned. He was dressed a bit similar to when he was in the Cyberpunk 2077 short film that he kind of comes in at the end as like the big bad guy. That was very reminiscent of that. But that's no bad. He is amazing. I think we talked about his film Kung Fu. What was it? Luke Van Tien, Kung Fu Warrior.
Yeah.
I think we talked about that recently.
We had that as a DTV throwback not too long ago. Yeah.
Oh yeah, cool. Yeah, because that's where I first saw him, and he's fantastic. He's one of those guys he is getting roles in front of the camera, but most of what he does is behind, working on films all around the world and that. But so that's one of the great treats of the movie, is seeing Scott being able to face off with people like Andy Long and Bo Fowler was in Avengement, and I'm not sure if he was in the bar. And they did get involved in the action, but it wasn't quite as here. He gets like he's like the showpiece character. He gets to be in this one of the opponents, and so Andy Long's scene is fantastic, and concurrently you've also got Sarah Cheng fighting as well. Against another
very good martial artist.
Who I wasn't familiar with. The guy playing
Silas.
Silas, Silas I wasn't familiar with, and nor was I familiar with Faisal Mohammed as Yendi. So these two guys were, that's what I like. You got the really established sort of well-known fan favorites turning up, and then you got some new people to sort of get excited about. So, who's these guys? I want to look at these. Who are they, and what are they doing, and what are they going to do next? Sarah Cheng, I was kind of, or Sarah Chang, I should say. I was more familiar with, because I've seen her in a couple of things, including a fantastic short film called The Teacher. Don't know if you've had a chance to check.
The Teacher is very good. Yeah, it was. It's a really interesting. There's a whole sequence which looks like a sideways scrolling.
Yes.
Sort of thing is very good, and the whole fight bit with the the chef wearing his earphones. I thought that sequence was really clever. So.
Yeah, and that's another film with really great timing. And it's mostly silent up until the end.
Yeah, not much dialogue.
But it opens. It was shot. I think it was shot in China, and it's got a nice car crash at the start, and it had quite a nice little budget. Really good showpiece for her. But she's also done lots of work on other things, including say her own sort of coordinating choreography work on films like The Triagonal, which isn't a great movie, but it's got some interesting. It's got some interesting.
Yeah, it's got some interesting
it.
bits, but
yeah, I mean, but this one, I mean, she steals every scene that she's in. She steals.
She's absolutely brilliant. I mean, she's basically playing Kato, isn't she, from the Pink Panther films? You know, it's that sort of role. You know,
I never thought about it like that, but you're right. He's kind of, but in a much more
Kato, you fool. There's
except
like,
they
flamingo.
The flamingo, and I like the way in some of the marketing the flamingo has actually been incorporated. It's like, oh, what's the flamingo all about? And then you'll discover that as you're watching the film. And Finicky Fred, played by Perry Banson, he's back from. So
this is interesting because when we spoke to our friend Sean about this film, because it's already seen it, and he did allude to one character whose acting wasn't up to the rest of them, and I'm wondering if he was referring to this character because it just seems quite out of step with everyone else in the film.
Oh, I don't know.
Would you agree?
Not really. I thought he fitted absolutely fine. You know, there wasn't anyone I didn't think, even, you know, because you got that kind of, basically Mike Fallon's got to protect this guy called Dante Zusa from Assassins, and the guy that character is quite annoying and stuff, but I thought the guy doing it I believe it's his first film role. I thought he did really well, even though he's not a likable character or anything. He's like, but you know, he's walking around this onesie and stuff, and that I didn't mind that. But Adam Basil, who we saw in the Resignation Day, Fighting Spirit. I think we posted that as one of our short film recommendations.
We did. Yeah.
He's in there as well, and also now.
Right.
I was surprised by one person turning up.
Right. So
I think we got to talk about the elephant in the film.
This is the elephant in the room. It really is. And so Zara Pithian is in this. We knew she was in this. It was a big role for her. And
I thought we were wondering whether they were going to cut her out. We were
going to cut her out, going to try and re-edit it, recast it or whatever. But I guess, you know, the production being too far in the can when you know the allegations and the court case and the sentencing came out, and you know we think that, you know, that did put a big delay on getting this film out the door. I think they've given, you know, a reasonable amount of distance to it, and the big shame of this, you know, the real heartbreak, is that this is probably the best thing she's done on screen. It really is. You know, I think her fight scene is absolutely superb. Her character is superb, and it's tarnished. You know, the whole thing is now tarnished because of you know, what had happened in a personal life.
Yeah. So she gets this great entrance, and then I'm like, ooh, and I'm like a bit thrown, thinking, oh my god, because I'd forgotten.
Even my wife
was actually going to be in it.
You know, exactly.
And then it was like the scene. They could have cut the scene. I think you could have done. I think you could have. Yeah, but it is a pivotal moment in the film. This is where the action kicks into the next big gear.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it's a very important scene. She's only in it for that one scene.
Yeah.
And it's 5 minutes of like intense action and banter. Between I mean, it's got one of your favorites. Got a kitchen fight.
Kitchen fight. I love kitchen fights. Yeah, restaurant kitchen fights, brilliant. Yeah.
So I was watching it thinking, could they have tricked? Because by the end of the scene, things have happened, and therefore, you know, that sort of colors on. I think you could have edited around it or used the voiceover device to work around that and cut it out. But I think maybe they were like thinking, you know, we've put so much work into this scene, maybe I mean, and what's quite telling is that Zara does not get a credit on the film. It's kind of an FU kind of thing. I think she's not her character doesn't get one of those, because they all get
freeze frame,
like Shaolin Jar kind of artwork things at the end, title cards, and she doesn't get one, and she's not even listed in the in the black and whites at the end. So I think that was kind of their way of saying, we don't want to
talk about
acknowledge too much about it, but she is in there.
Well, they didn't know. That's the thing, nobody knew at the time what was going on, really.
No, so and if anyone doesn't know what we're talking about, basically she's a convicted child abuser.
Well, aiding and abetting.
Aiding and abetting? No, I'm pretty sure she was involved. I think that was the whole thing. Anyway, but children in her care.
I've just kept away from reading too much into it.
So that doesn't tarnish the film, I don't think.
Not at all.
I think
as you say, it is a linchpin moment, and things only improve from there on. Basically, so that we get the fight with the what's his name, the vampire guy.
Oh Yendi.
Yeah, we get all that, and then as you say, we get Silas turning up and Poco the clown, all that sort of stuff. But it just builds on it basically. It's a great little scene, but the film doesn't rest on its laurels. It sort of gets better and better as it goes on. Yeah,
it is pure action movie, because it is a very, very thin plot that's really just an excuse to hang set piece up. I mean, they are big, lengthy, and very entertaining set piece. There's not a lot of repetition in what's happening. There's a lot of variety. Weapons get involved. There's some really nice. There's a bit where Scott has to do like a bit of a Jackie Chan kind of jump up to get away. And there's visual effects sort of thrown in. I think one of the visual effects are one of the weaker elements of the movie. I think some of the, like heads blowing around and stuff. Some of the visual effects don't come off as well as you'd hope. But they were making a film on a a fairly restricted budget in a very limited time frame, and I think that's a very minor quibble, I'd say. Of mine is the visual effects, the location and all the setting, all the on location shooting that they did. They found some great locations, which all adds to it. Say there's a fight on like a rooftop, and you get the sun bearing down on them and everything. It's really, I mean, I think I said when Accident Man came out that was kind of the most accessible film at that point of Scott's. That I could say, like, my brother, who likes like Guy Ritchie and that sort of thing, that I could get him to potentially to watch. Probably more than Avengement, even, because Avengement's quite heavy, whereas Accident Man, it is by its nature, it's quite light. But I think this one is better and even more accessible. I don't think you even have to see the first one, although it would help with the characters and stuff. But you could just dive straight into this one, I think.
You could. I mean, basically, watching the first one will help you understand sort of Mike Fallon's sort of mindset going into this one, and then the sort of level of guilt that he's sort of carrying around with him about what he did and what happened in London, which was a really interesting element. They could have just wiped the slate clean and went, oh, here's a new adventure, but no, they actually sort of spent the time to address, some of the elements from the first film, which was really cool. Anyway, Rich, scores on the doors. We're going to give Accident Man Hitman's Holiday.
I might just give it a 10,
Holy shit.
I think I will give it a 10.
Holy shit. Okay, I believe that is our first ever 10. I don't think we've ever given a 10.
I don't give out 10. I don't give out 10s very often, but I think.
Well, no shit, Sherlock. I mean, none of us do.
But no, I think I was thinking 9, but the amount of, Scott has made so many great films. So if you're going to put this one potentially above at least some of the others, or on a footing with some of the best of some of the others, it's got to be a 10. I mean, the just based on the choreography and the action component alone puts it on a 10 for me.
All right, then. So this could, I may be wrong, this could be our very first 10 in 215 episodes of the DTV Digest. I'm not going to score it quite so high. I'm going to give it an 8 overall. But this is very, very enjoyable. It is action-packed. It is very funny. It even won over my wife, who didn't like the first one too much. So there you go, an 8, and gore blimey, a 10 for Accident Man Hitman's Holiday.
Maybe
Definitely.
I'm overexcited. I don't care.
Maybe. Go check it out. Our next review is Post-Mortem. Set in Hungary just after the First World War, a post-mortem photographer and a little girl confront ghosts in a haunted village. I believe I'm the only one who's seen this one, guys.
I'm afraid so.
Yep, and you two are really missing out. This is, other than its length, it is a bit too long, about 1 hour 40, I believe. No, 1 hour 55, nearly 2 hours long. But this is so good. It really is. Right from the off, we've got this battle scene set in, First World War with our main character. He gets injured in a sort of a shell blast, and everyone thinks he's actually dead. He sort of gets thrown into a mass grave, but then he sort of comes back to life. After the war, he takes a job as this sort of post-mortem photographer. So, back in the early days of photography, people would actually pose with their dead relatives. It really was a thing. So if somebody recently died, they'd get them all dressed up in their best suit and everything, and pose them in a chair or standing up or whatever, and then make it look like a family photo. Yeah, it was a thing in QI about this ages ago. So this particular village, a load of people have died over the winter, but because it's so cold and the ground is frozen, they haven't been able to bury anyone. So they invite this guy to come along, and all the villagers will sort of pose with their dead relatives, and he can take all the photos and stuff, which he does. Except that when he starts taking these photos, he starts noticing these sort of dark, shadowy figures in the background of the photos, and realizes that there's something more going on here, something supernatural going on in this place. One of the things I liked about it is that there's absolutely no gaslighting going on at all. No one's going, "Don't be ridiculous, ghosts. Who do you think you are?" sort of thing. Everyone just goes, "Yeah, this place is haunted like shit." It really is. It doesn't, it doesn't pussyfoot around with the ghosts either. We're very aware that there's no sort of coy, is that something over there? Or did that door shut by itself? No, it's fucking ghosts all the way through this film. The only issue I have, other than the length, is I'm not sure it actually explains what the hell's going on. There's lots of ghosts, they're all hanging around in this place, but why? What is actually keeping them there? And it doesn't quite address that, I don't think, unless I missed a line of dialogue along the way. But the production values are absolutely superb all the way through. There's scenes where people are getting thrown in the air or lifted in the air by ghosts in broad daylight in the middle of a street. So the effects work is really good. It was just a really nice surprise, this one. The only other issue, so there's 3 issues. There you go. So the length doesn't explain what itself, and the version that I saw, the version that's been put out for a screener for review, was dubbed into English, which it would have been nice to have seen this in its original language with English subs. I could have coped with that. So I don't know if the eventual disc, if it's going to disc, will have the option for original language with English subs. But I would hope so, at the very least. But yeah, if you get a chance to watch it, I thoroughly recommend it. I'm giving this an 8 out of 10. Our next film is The Spine of Night. In this animated fantasy, it's set in a land of magic, and it follows heroes from different eras and cultures battling against a malevolent force. Okay, that's, a very sort of ambiguous way of describing this film. We start off with this priestess who is on this sort of quest to destroy the last sort of magic flower kind of thing, which has been guarded by this guy. Yeah, very much like the Knight Templar looking after the Holy Grail at the end of the Last Crusade. It's that sort of setup, and then she sort of explains who she is and what she's doing there and things. I had no idea what I was watching going into this. I hadn't read the blurb. I hadn't seen any trailers or anything. I didn't really pay much attention to the cover of the DVD, to be quite honest. So this was a bit of a mindfuck overall. It is incredibly nihilistic and just weird and incredibly ambitious, for definite. Steve, how did you get on with The Spine of Night?
Yes, it is very overblown, slightly confusing, really, because I didn't really get what was going on half the time, because it's jumping back and forward, and it's like framed by the priestess who then dies and apparently comes back, and it is a bit weird. I mean, the animation style again is also a bit cheap in my eyes.
Mm.
I mean, I was sat there watching my son watching. He's like, "Why are you watching Saturday morning cartoons?" I'm like, "Well, I'm not." It's just watching.
It's a little
2
bit
minutes.
more grim. It's a bit more grim.
Yeah.
Than,
Yeah. But I enjoyed the voice cast. I mean, it's got really, Richard E. Grant, Patton Oswalt, Lucy Lawless. Some quite big names in there. It's just a little bit. It's not all over the place, but it doesn't really explain much. You've just got this plant and it's magic. And then someone nicks it and becomes like a god. And it kind of it did remind me of something like, the old, is it Ralph Bakshi version, like Lord of the Rings, from years ago.
Does have
that
sort of, that style of that animation.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
But all in all, it was okay.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. I got sort of a vibe of like the Reformation, sort of Martin Luther out of this. There's a sort of weird sort of religious cult element going on. Definitely. But Rich, what did you make of The Spine of Night?
Yeah, I think it's the kind of movie you have to be into that style of film. And like you mentioned Ralph Bakshi's Lord of the Rings, but also which was 1978, but also Heavy Metal from 1981. Yep. Both of which, when I was looking at the extra feature, because I was thinking this is very much in the style of those. I
wish I had the soundtrack of the Heavy Metal one, but there you go.
Yeah, which I think that actually, as a side note, I think Heavy Metal's release got held up at re-release got held up at some points because of the soundtrack, because of like issues over rights, music rights, and things like that. But so the animation of that period and Ralph Bakshi and that particular adult fantasy kind of stuff. I watched some of the making of features on the disc, which do highlight very clearly that those were the influences of the filmmaker. That it's very much he was kind of influenced by the saw those films at quite a young age and whatever, and they've sort of his life has been devoted to that style of film and those kind of stories ever since. So yeah, there's very much a Lord of the Rings kind of thing. It's very much of it's kind of got the Heavy Metal style anthology kind of different offshoot stories happening, and then it's because it's all kind of held together with the Richard E. Grant character and or the character I should say Richard E. Grant's voicing talking with the other, and then they cut and then we get away to another story and stuff. But it's hard for me to judge it too much because it's really not my cup of tea. The animation is rotoscope, which means they did shoot live action, but then what they did was they've drawn it over it. They've done the drawing based. Richard Linklater did it.
Scanner Darkly.
So it's Scanner Darkly, Fire and Ice.
So that's probably most sort of, but this was like a very low budget, very much passion project kind of thing. I think it's taken many years of animation, to actually to complete the film.
It is based on. Sort of puts me in mind of Mad Gods as well.
Phil Tippett's Mad God, which was also on, which like this is on. They're both on Shudder. It was an elaboration of a short film, which is also available on the disc, along with another one of a similar style.
All right.
So the original short film has the same character that Richard E. Grant's voicing, the one with the helmet, who we meet at the start, and also I think the stuff with the flower is in there as well. And so that was, I think, the instigating point was sort of making that sort of 5 minute short. And what they've gone here, they've gone like the whole hog with an hour and a half kind of thing. So I think if you like those fantasy films from that period, that style of animation, those that sort of the heavy metal, Lord of the Rings, Ralph Bakshi stuff, basically, when Fire and Ice and whatnot, I think you'll have a nice sort of throwback, nostalgic kind of feel about watching this. But I don't. I'm not the biggest fan of animated films. I don't do anime and stuff like that generally. So I'm the wrong audience for it. So I don't really want to give it a too bad a score, because it's what I'm bringing to it. It's not the film's fault that I don't like this particular kind of movie. So I think what they've achieved is impressive. It just wasn't for me.
And on that note, Rich, what are you going to score it?
I'm going to sit on the fence with a 5.
Okay, and Steve?
I'll give it a 6.
I think I liked it a little bit better than you guys. And even so, I was flummoxed by large portions of it, I must admit. But I think overall, I'm going to give this I'm going to join Steve on a 6, sort of a high 6. So 2 6s and a 5 for The Spine of Night. If you like your old-fashioned animation, go check it out. Our next review is Summit Fever. A daring dream to scale the world's most challenging trio of mountains soon turns into a terrifying nightmare for a group of friends when a deadly storm traps the climbers near the summit and cuts off all hope of rescue. It's an interesting drama overall. And I must admit, I do like this quite a bit. I will never ever climb a mountain or anything like that. It's just not me. But I love watching films about mountain climbing, when there's sort of thing involved, mainly because just of the technical skill of the filmmakers to really sort of pull it off. And I think they do a superb job with this one. They really do. It is top-notch photography, cinematography, all of that. It is a drama, so and I think it highlights 2 elements. So what you need to be a climber, basically, is you have to have this sort of do or die attitude for one, but also you just have to have a heart of steel, because quite possibly you're just going to have to leave people behind in order to save yourself. As becomes apparent again and again in this film. I think the stunt work is absolutely superb. What they managed to do here. This was really, really impressive. How about you, Steve?
I thought it was really well shot. I thought it looks absolutely beautiful. The performances were good. I just found it slightly repetitive, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I do, because it's like, here's another peak, and everyone's here's another set of characters who are all going to get fucked up.
Yeah,
sort of doing this
that,
shit. Yeah.
That was the only thing that slightly disappointment, and it took a while to get going as well. I think it was about 45 minutes before anything really happens.
It's the whole thing with the younger guy. He's supposed to be going off to be a
like an investment banker or
stockbroker or something.
Yeah.
But it's just not him. Yeah. It's interesting.
He wants to be.
It takes a while for him to get in a position.
Yeah, but I'll tell you, I was actually surprised with Ryan Felipe because I'm not really seeing him in anything for a while, to be fair, and all that shit going around. But I thought actually he was really good in it, and he's a bit of a cocky young, type of character, and which kind of expects him to be. But he did bring just that little bit of gravitas with it. He's grounded it. He's grounded it a bit, and him and his wife or partner or whatever. I thought they both played a really good part in it, and they were really good. It's just like I say, it just got a little bit repetitive. It's like someone dies, right? Let's climb the mountain in honor of them. Shit goes wrong again. Someone else dies. We'll climb the mountain, mountain in honor of them, and stuff like that. And that's my main issue with it. It just got slightly repetitive. I think if it had been, maybe one climb, they all got trapped, shit went wrong, that kind of thing.
But then you'd have the vertical limit.
No, true. But I just thought that might, build a bit tension a bit more, because it just seems a little bit
unfocused.
Which you probably would happen out of nowhere. I get that, and then, but it don't build any tension. It doesn't create any tension or suspense or anything like that. It's just one bit one man, thank you, man, type thing.
Yeah, it's I suppose it's a bit bloody mindedness, isn't it? Most people, after the first set of tragedies, you think, oh, that was pretty bad. After the second set of tragedies, you might be thinking, I think the world's trying to tell me something.
Yeah.
It's like, am I going to roll the dice one more time to sort of see, that there is a sort of element of that. I think a lot of people watching it are going, "What are you doing? Just don't do it. Just do not go up there." But there you go. Rich, how did he get on with this one?
I wasn't quite sure what to expect when I turned it on, because I didn't know what genre it was going to be.
Yeah.
And I saw it was from director Julian Gilby, who'd made A Lonely Place to Die, which was 11 years ago.
Oh my word, that was a good film. Yeah.
But the thing was, this is the film that I thought A Lonely Place to Die was going to be, because when I actually did watch A Lonely Place to Die quite recently, around, I think, on the back of watching The Ledge, which was another mountain climbing sort of thriller, and realised that A Lonely Place to Die is not really about the mountain climbing. It doesn't spend much time there. It goes off and
it's a survival horror movie, basically.
Yeah, it does a lot of other stuff. Whereas this one is very much focused on the mountain climbing. And I wasn't sure, is it going to be a thriller where something's going to happen like The Ledge was, or is it going to be like a vertical limit kind of thing? And it ends up being, it's much more of a drama with a sort of big climax thing. Say the stuff that Mike, that you were saying in the synopsis, that's the end of the movie, really.
Yeah, it's the last third of the movie.
Everything else is the character development, the build up, and I thought Ryan Phillippe's cast, because he was the name that I saw on I thought he was the main character. I wasn't sure, but he's kind of the selling point of the movie, and that alone was like, oh, that's he. I would not put him in this movie, and even watching him in it, I was like, he still doesn't quite fit. I mean, it's not as bad as when Tom Berenger played a skydiver in Cutaway, but as like the established guy.
I still haven't watched that. I bought the DVD of Cutaway, and I still haven't watched it.
Interesting cast, but not really much else. But but he was actually pretty good in this. I thought it was all right. And Freddie Thorpe is the lead. I'm not a big fan of.
No.
But he was okay. He wasn't as irritating as he was in like Overdrive, the film he did with Scott Eastwood.
Oh yeah.
But you know, it's a formulaic. You know, he goes to meet up with his mate, and you know he meets a girl and whatever. It's all a bit, you know, it's in that kind of Fast and Furious and all the Point Break and whatever. Obviously without the thriller aspect, but yeah. And then it kind of does the Summit Fever bit comes in at the end, where there's a little bit of psychological horror. There's a little bit of stuff going on at the end with, you know, state of mind and stuff. And yes, there is quite high body count in the movie. There's some pretty impressive sequences. There's one bit where they're climbing and they get hit by the most styrofoam looking boulder, unfortunately. But it's a good sequence. It just sort of has that. It doesn't quite work initially, because you think, that just looks a bit silly. But for the most part, yeah, I'd be on your side. You know, the film has lots of. They're traveling different locations, so you see lots of different places. I mean, as a travelogue movie, you get to see, like, I mean, Chamonix looks lovely, and you get lots of lovely on location shooting. And you know,
the stuff up the mountains and stuff is superb. Really
and
good.
the stuff where the actors are climbing the mountains, clearly the stuff done in a studio and whatever, is much better done than it was in like The Ledge, I thought. So yeah, it's, for me, it's kind of disposable kind of thing. You take it or leave it kind of movie. I don't think there's anything hugely to recommend it. I think if you like mountain climbing movies and stuff, and seeing what sort of, you know, because people do this stuff like free solo climbing and stuff. I mean, there's a documentary of that guy doing that. Or I think there's might be a couple of films like that. But people do mad stuff. It's like this is one of this is a fairly representative film of the mad stuff that people do and the consequences of it.
As I said, it's that sort of egotistical, bloody mindedness kind of attitude that you need. I think, you know, you need a certain, quite a high level of self-belief in order to do this.
Well, Fall was the other one. I mean, Fall was completely fantastical, but Fall is probably the closest, I would say, to this. I mean, even the setup's a little bit similar. There's the friend who wants to. I'm not sure if I should go or whatever, and they're like, "Come on," and then they go, and then they get into a situation, and stuff. So yeah, I think if you were going to double. You know, if you want to double bill, this and Fall would actually go quite well together. But coincidentally enough, both are Signature Entertainment releases.
There are a lot of good mountaineering, you know, films.
Films like K2.
K2,
that's
Michael
it.
Bay.
There was because they do the North Face, don't they, in this movie?
Yeah.
There was a German film called North Face, which I did see a long time ago.
That was set just before the Second World War. That was really good. The Eiger Sanction, of course. Clint Eastwood. What other ones? So Vertical Limit. Cliffhanger, of course. Yeah, definitely. I'm pretty sure there's another one I'm thinking of. It's just out, just on the tip of my tongue.
Touching the Void.
No, it wasn't.
I have seen that. It's a good documentary.
Yeah. Everest.
There's one about. I'm sure there's one about it's either a skier or a snowboarder or something. Never mind. But it's all that sort of stuff. Oh yeah, there was, and it had someone famous in it as well. I'm pretty sure we covered it here. I can't remember now. Yeah,
I know we did that. We did that one where, like, you know, they're being haunted.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I know that one. No, that was awful.
There was a couple we've seen, like Let It Snow, Red Dot.
Yeah.
Oh, there's loads of horror ones and stuff.
Yeah, loads of horror.
But I like a good mountaineering movie, and this wasn't bad. You know, the actual sort of technical aspects of this was superb. It's just the sort of the drama bit behind it. Really, you know, you're kind of waiting for the next mountaineering bit, unfortunately. On that note, Steve, how are you going to score it?
I'll give it a 7.
All right, and Rich.
Yeah, I think a 7. Yeah, I'll give it a 7.
I totally agree with both of you. Yep, 3 7s for Summit Fever. Go check it out. Our next review is Trafficked. When a middle-class teenager goes missing on the night before her birthday, her desperate parents hire a team of private investigators to find her, much to the chagrin of the local police.
Mike,
Rich.
can I ask a question?
Of course.
Dean Cain's in this.
Yes.
Yeah.
It might not seem it from the synopsis, but I'm just going to throw this out there. Is this a Christian movie?
There is a certain element of that in here, definitely.
Uh-huh.
There is a bit of praying, a bit of going to church, that sort of thing. But it didn't feel, well, yeah.
It's not a propaganda, like a conversion kind of.
No, it's not that. And it's not that. And it's not a case of, this wouldn't have happened if she adhered to the rules of the church or anything like that. There's nothing like that going on.
Okay.
It's kind of like a victim of circumstance more.
Right.
So we got this young girl, played by Christy Swanson, who
no, that'll be a mother.
That was the mother. She's looking good for her age. Sorry, there's the daughter, the other one, Sophie Bolin.
Yeah.
Playing Alison, who is catfished basically by a guy online pretending to be this nice guy called Ryan or something. And she goes to meet him for the first time and basically gets abducted and brought into this prostitute ring, the sort of traffic ring, basically. And then, as Rich said, we do have Dean Cain in this, playing this ex-cop who now does these sort of private eye cases. We see him at the beginning, sort of rescuing these dogs who've been sort of kidnapped and used in a dog fighting ring. And then he's sort of brought in on this case. I don't think that there's not a lot wrong here in terms of sort of the acting, production values, that sort of thing. It's a relatively low budget film.
Is it a mainstream thriller, or is it like a more of a TV movie of the weekish kind of feel to
it?
It
reminded me of like what they call it, like a Hallmark movie.
Right.
If it wasn't I'd agree. If it wasn't for how fucking sleazy the traffickers were. Because they, even though it's kept off camera, these guys are fucking sleazy. Right from the off, when this girl's captured, she's forced to give this guy a blowjob.
Definitely not a Christian.
Not a Christian movie.
They would have cut that out.
And it's inferred that these four guys who are the kidnappers have basically been having their way with their captors for quite a while. It's pretty sleazy on that level, but overall, it's also very bland. I think
that's what I mean. Just the quality in the script. It just, yeah. I mean, to me, it was, like I say, it was like a Hallmark, but yeah, a little bit more sleazy, but it just seemed so cliched. It's, the parents looking into the private eye and, finding out that he's been kicked off the force and he's been to rehab 3 times. So why should they be trusting him and paying him all this money when nothing's happening? And it was just so frustrating.
Yeah.
And it was bland is the exact word I'd use. To be fair,
that's exactly. I mean, there's not really a lot we can say about this film overall. The dad character was quite amusing. When they sort of when they sort of tell him how much it's going to cost, and he's like, "Oh, hang on a minute," actually sort of puts it in the balance. Like, well, I could get my daughter back, but then again, I'd lose 20 grand. That was quite interesting.
Well, it's not so. It's just so much as well how much he kind of
faffed around.
Ramps it up. 1 minute he's like, okay, we'll be nice and calm and cool about this, and we'll try and find this. Next thing's in a hotel room going to blow his brains out. It's like,
oh yeah, with a bottle of beer, a bottle of whiskey.
Yeah.
So that was the other funny thing was when they're looking to hire the guy, Dean Cain's team. He's the one go, hang on a minute, let's think about this. And his wife's go, no, we've got to do it. We've got to rescue our daughter or something. And then sort of like when the cops sort of go, actually, he got kicked off the force, he's got a drinking problem. They sort of switch over and she's the one sort of going, no, dump him. Let's get the police to do it. And he's going, no, hang on a minute. These guys are doing a good job, which is, it's kind of like good cop, bad cop, but they got the roles mixed up halfway through the script.
Yeah, but again, it just doesn't. I don't want to spoil it, but the ending. Again, I thought that was really stupid. You don't even find out what really happens. No, they literally break in there. Next thing, hospital. Is that
basically?
It? I mean, you don't. You've got all these people running around with guns, but nothing's done with them.
Nah.
It's like they've hired them just for show, and they can't. Well, no, we can't really use them. Really.
Don't have any sound effects. We don't have any sound effects for this.
Yeah.
The film does end with a sort of quite harrowing statistic, which sort of flashes up. I must admit, sort of 700,000 girls sort of trafficked in 1 year, or something.
Yeah.
It's a criminal enterprise worth something like £30 billion a year.
$30 billion,
yeah. I mean, it's crazy.
Don't get me wrong. It is. And it shouldn't be happening, and it's disgusting, and it does. But this just seems. It seems to trivialize it in a way. And
I agree. There's no sort of lesson to be learned here or anything. Is I mean, it's like, well, who is this actually aimed at? It's a weird sort of situation. When in doubt, hire a PI and get their contacts to, hit the streets or something. It's like, well, okay. But anyway, how are we going to score this one, Steve?
I'll give it a 5.
I think it deserves a 5 overall. As I said, there's nothing particularly wrong with the production or anything like that. It's just that it's just Blair.
Is Eric Roberts in it? It feels like Eric Roberts is in it.
No,
we get Dean Cain's all right. Actually, I like Dean Cain in this, I must admit, but everyone else is just Blair.
He's usually pretty likable. Yeah,
I think so. Anyway, 2 5s for Trafficked. If it's your thing, go check it out. Our next review is Mean Spirited. A wannabe YouTuber sets out to bury the hatchet with his celebrity childhood friend over a special weekend, only to find out that he's not quite himself anymore. I mostly like this one, Steve. I think this one almost gets there. And it starts off brilliantly with this guy, Andy, and his YouTube channel. Because, oh my God, they nail that. They nail that sort of crass, sort of splurge, really annoying, sort of like, dickhead. Stuff appearing on the screen, dickhead personality kind of character, plus, and the editing and all the rest of it. My son, I'm sure your kids probably watched loads of this shit as well.
Oh God, yeah.
But yes, they absolutely nail that sort of like that show. And overall, I think this works mostly really well. I think it just needed something more at the end.
Some scares.
Some scares would have been nice, but I did like the dialogue. I thought the acting was very good. In particular, Jeff Ryan, who plays Bryce, I thought he was fucking brilliant. Absolutely.
Also directed as well.
Sorry?
He also directed it as well.
Oh, of course, he's a director as well.
Yeah.
Of course he is. Yeah. But yeah, he is though. He's just a weird enigmatic character for a lot of the film. He just sort of flits in and out. You don't really sort of see a lot of him until towards the end, and you get more of his character. But yeah, his stuff to camera, I thought was brilliant. He really did have like a real proper sort of screen presence. But yeah, no, I thought he was great. I thought Andy was really good as well. The guy playing Andy, Will Madden, especially when he takes his baseball cap off. And he's
I was quite surprised at that.
that was quite, oh shit. And that sort of like really does sort of like bring it home as to, you've been doing this a while now, haven't you, Andy? Yeah, you've been sort of stuck in a rut for a while now. Yeah, but I think, as you say, I think it just needed to push more into the scary bit, and it didn't quite get there.
I mean, that's because to me, it's pushing more like a black comedy, really, because it's not. And I think that's what let it down in the end. I mean, like I say, it starts off really well, but it's one of them where the characters aren't really likable.
Yeah.
Apart from, say, is it Tom?
Yeah, the cameraman.
Yeah. And the other girl, Joey, I think she's called. I think that, they were quite likable, but the rest of them were a bit,
up themselves.
All of them were a bit dickish,
Yeah.
And I just think it lent too much into the comedy rather than going for the scares. I did like the angle with it being like a YouTube show or whatever,
Yeah.
I think the only time it doesn't do that is when it's like security cameras, like outside the house and stuff like that.
That's right. We get like the police dash cam, don't we, at one point? How that's the thing, and I say this a lot with found footage films and things, is how is the audience actually watching this? Because if you're suddenly bringing in all these different elements and you don't address it, then the audience must be omniscient, to be sort of now you have to be in the police car, rather than sort of just witnessing a film. That kind of thing does take me out of it a little bit.
But I think it kind of worked in this one, especially at the end, because of what happens and stuff. It kind of made sense in a way that a lot of them don't. It's like, oh, we found these tapes, but it's a fully made film type. You know what I mean? Type.
Oh yeah.
But I just wish it had gone more down the scary route. It just felt a bit flat at the end. You've got this slight build up, and then it just kind of plateaus and doesn't bring anything more to it. It needed something else. Like I said, it needed something else to give it that oomph or whatever.
Yeah.
And I think it just misses that.
There was one really good sequence. So they go sort of cliff jumping, there's a pool or whatever. And Tom, Tom's a bit scared going in. All of a sudden he sort of steps and he sort of goes in. What was interesting is they investigate their own film at that point, because he's sort of editing everything together. He actually sort of, it's really weird. It's like, well, we're going back to that point in the film and reinvestigating it and sort of zooming in on certain bits so you can see what actually happened. That was a sort of very interesting sort of element. But I mean, I don't want to go too much further into it because it's it would get into sort of spoiler territory really. But it is very well presented. It nails the aesthetic of the that style of YouTube channel. I'm sure we've all seen episodes like it.
It does. Yeah, it does do that bit really, really well.
But maybe it just needed a bit more. I think that's the other issue. The set dressing in the house didn't really sort of convey the feeling of dread that it wanted to go for. It was just sort of a bit too hodgepodge. It's like, we've got a sheet, we've drawn a pentagram on it, that'll do, won't it? There's a bit of that to it. We should have gone a bit further with it. But other than that, I thought it was fine. So I'm going to give this one a 7 out of 10. How about you?
I'll give it a 6.
I think that's sort of like quite reasonable, considering you didn't like Jeff Ryan's previous film, Mass Hysteria.
No, hated it.
You hated it. I actually really liked it. But there you go. So it's no surprise that I probably like this one a bit better than you. But there you go. Okay, a 6 and a 7 for Mean Spirited. Go check it out. Our short shot this week is Luna. In a dystopian future, a young Luna ventures into enemy territory to rescue her father and try to mend bridges with her brother. Wow, basically, guys, this is 30-minute short with amazing production values, amazing action sequences.
It's like a mini blockbuster, isn't it?
It is a mini blockbuster overall. I'm really shocked at what they did here, not just with the action and the production values, but also the script. There's some really nice little moments in this, which we'll get into. Steve, your thoughts on Luna?
Yeah, thought it was absolutely cracking. Really enjoyed it. I mean, it starts off, she's trying to break in or, attack her room, whatever. And then, you find out that there's family history between her and the guy and what the gist of the story is. And then you get like the boardroom scenes between her trying to take over the family because the father's missing. And then you get the action scenes, which were just phenomenal. The bit with the drones where they're driving away.
Oh yeah.
Jesus,
that chase sequence.
Yeah, that was phenomenal. It looked absolutely beautiful, really did. And the choreography is great. I thought that the fight scenes were really good, and even the ending. It's one of the best shots I've seen for a while, to be fair.
Yeah, totally agree. Rich, you curated this one for us. How on earth did you find this one?
I think I'll tell you how I found it. So I follow Dutch martial artist Ron Smurenberg.
Oh yeah.
And he posted, I think he initially posted the link to the premiere, which at that point didn't have English subtitles, and I was kind of waiting a few days I thought the film would get a second release with subtitles, but what it turned out was it was the same link, but they added the captions in 2 days later.
Okay.
So and I sort of discovered that when I went back. So so he's the reason I found it. He's very active. I mean, he's based in Thailand, I believe. He appears all over the place in stuff over there, and he's the sort of the big bad in this one.
The butcher.
The butcher, yeah. So he gets some good action scenes, but also the setup it's just such a high quality production all around that I was kind of blown away because it's from Thailand. It's based on a video game. It's basically a promotional film for introducing a new character into this video game called Free Fire by a company called Garena. So it's Garena Free Fire.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Which right at the end of the movie it comes up with Free Fire, because that's the name of the video game. So, and this is the second film that they've made. And the first one I was aware of it because I had seen the first one and I did enjoy the first one. I think if you want more of a Battlefield kind of movie, similar vein, I think this is superior, but I think Undefeated is definitely worth looking up. It's actually also got the same actress, Urasaya Sperbund, who I think is Norwegian Thai.
All right.
And she's also a singer, and I think she sang the song on the end as well. She was in the original. She was in that first film playing a different character. This is one where they've developed this new character for the game based on her sort of persona. I think she's got like a pop star. She's like a model and stuff. So they built it around her. But I think what they've cleverly done is in the action sequences, due to the sort of the location, the sort of geography of the place, she has to wear a mask. So that enabled them to very easily enable very skilled stunt people to do those sequences. I don't think she's involved in those, and you can't see her face and stuff. So I think that indicates that she probably isn't. She handles the dialogue scenes and and stuff really, really well. She's got a fantastic presence, especially when she's in the boardroom and sort of she's talking around and debating, because she's trying to there's basically factions, aren't there? There's a sort of a civil war-ish kind of thing in the guild, and she's trying to steer them in a certain direction, as well as there's multiple things going on in the story, looking for the father. There's meeting up with her brother and sort of trying to talk him around, because he's kind of gone to the other side. It's a bit of a Star Warsy kind of thing. And the plot, the film jumps around, so it's kind of it's framed by this conversation, and then throws in the flashbacks, and then throws in the sort of side bits as well. And it just consistently keeps your interest, and it's punctuated with about 3 big action sequences. And it's all and I want to give credit to the people involved. So the film is directed by a guy called Marco Calantari, who's quite a visual director, a bit like with Accident Man and the Kirbys. He edits, or at least in this case, I think he edited the film as well. So it's much more. So he's brought his particular sort of I say blockbuster sort of aesthetic to it, and also he's managed to get it cut the way he wanted, and also and the stunt people, the action scenes. Urasaya's got 2 doubles, Sasitorn Pampim and Dominic Zucker, and I think the choreographer was Pradeep Seeliam. None of whom have particularly long IMDb's. They've worked on a few things, but I think this is kind of a great showpiece for what they can, for what all of them can do. I mean, for international audiences to sort of discover Urasaya, that's she's such a great anchor to the film, and obviously the cinematography and the costume design and everything all works really well with that. But they as I think Steve was saying, there's plot twists, there's developments that unfold, that sort of resolve things very, even though it's leading into obviously like the next part of a video game. It's kind of like you're going to have to go and play the video. There is a wrap up with a conclusion, and so that's why it feels like a good solid movie, rather than like here's the end, it's not like a cutscene. Where we've got like, oh, here's the actors, and then we're not going to give you any resolution because now you've got to go off and play the game. You don't have to go and play the game after you've watched this. I've watched it twice. I'm not going to go and play the game, but it's just a fantastically entertaining movie. Yeah, probably one of the best in terms of budget and quality. If you want like a big budget kind of feel to your short films, then this is the one I would say to go for. It's not it's the captions are pretty good. There's a couple of spelling mistakes in there, as you see on most things, but they've done a really good job with that, so it's very accessible. Go see it.
One of my favorite aspects about this, I mean, the action's great, as you said, the production values are great. It's the depth to the characterization. Because Luna's got these 3 or 4 really loyal guys helping her out.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there's this great bit where she's in this underground bit with her dad and her brother in this big fight, and one of them wants to go in to help her, and the other one's sort of saying she didn't say she could do it by herself. She said she had to do it by herself. Because it goes back to what was said in the boardroom, where they're saying, well, if you want to take control, you have to do this by yourself, so there was that sort of element, which I thought was just really great, just sort of really good sort of character moment where her sort of loyal guys, sort of showing their belief in her and sort of faith in her abilities, which is good. So yeah, this was a really good, really well-rounded sort of piece of work. Definitely check it out. We don't score them. We don't score the short shots, but we certainly recommend you check them out, and you will find a link to this in the footnotes below. Go check it out. Our DTV throwback this week is Patient Zero. After an unprecedented global pandemic turns the majority of humankind into violent infected, a man gifted with the ability to speak the infected's new language leads the last survivors on a hunt for Patient Zero and a cure. This is a weird film. It's weird mainly mainly for the cast. You know, Matt Smith with an American accent is weird. I'm not saying he does a bad American accent. I'm just saying it's weird.
Didn't he do an American accent in Terminator?
Was he in Terminator?
Yeah, I didn't watch that shit. It's either Genesis or
Genesis,
Dark
I
Fate.
Really? I can't
Or was it
remember.
Dark Fate? I can't remember. Yeah, I think it was Genesis.
I didn't watch it.
Well, I watched it, but I don't even remember him being in it. So there you go. But also Natalie Dormer's in this, and Stanley Tucci.
John Bradley.
John Bradley. So
Quite a Game of Thrones reunion, to be fair.
yeah, a bit of that, and you know, this kind of a bit of 28 Days Later, but also Day of the Dead. You know, the Romero zombie movie.
You know, that's exactly what I wrote down.
Yeah. That's the one that really sort of jumps out here, because you know you got that sort of friction between the military and the scientists.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the scientists say we can cure this, we can find a cure, and the military going, no, just kill them all. That's what we need.
It's also that bunker setting, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Like
Yeah. But yeah, it's an interesting one for sure. But Steve, what did you make of Patient Zero?
I enjoyed it, actually. It was kind of not what I was thinking it was going to be in a way. I was just flicking through, and you know, I saw that one. I thought, oh. And I looked at the cast, thought, right, yeah, give that a go then. And yeah, I found it really interesting, especially, you know, the actual communicating with the zombies as such.
Yeah, that was an interesting element.
I found that was really intriguing. It's not something I've seen before, to be fair, ever. And I just thought they did it really, really well. And what they were actually saying as well made sense. You know, it weren't all, how would I explain it? It wasn't gobbledygook they were coming out with. You know, they were coming out with actual intelligent sentences, and then Stanley Tucci turns up.
It wasn't like it wasn't like you know, the Will Smith I Am Legend or anything like that. You know, there was a proper intelligence involved.
Yeah, and it's like I say, especially near the end where Stanley Tucci turns up, and then you know he's like the genius version of the zombies. Which
I think of him as the brain gremlin, you know, like from Gremlins 2.
It does come across like that. And but it's Stanley Tucci, you know what I mean? You can't go wrong with him. And I thought Natalie Dormer was really good as well. She brought a decent bit of gravitas. Also, as well, the fact that Matt Smith's wife, again, is still involved, you know.
Agnes Dean.
Yeah,
plays.
Which I didn't recognise her at all, to be fair. Really didn't recognise her. But I like that element of it as well. It's just, you know, there's just different elements that come together and it coheres quite well. So I did enjoy it.
Yeah, totally agree with that. Rich, what did you make of Patient Zero?
Yeah, so I was a bit anxious about going into it because I wasn't sure about the whole Matt Smith kind of factor, because I'm not a Doctor Who fan. I haven't seen him as Doctor Who's. I haven't really seen much of Matt Smith at all in anything apart from Terminator Genesis, I think it was. So there was that. And then it was kind of like that zombie thing. And the only thing I can think of is that maybe the zombie movie fatigue is why this didn't get a cinema release, because this is a good, you know, solid movie with very decent production values that should have really. I'm surprised that it didn't get. I mean, maybe got some bad reviews in the States or something. I don't know, but it's a British movie pretending to be an American one, which can sometimes work and sometimes not. Here it works very well.
Yeah.
Natalie Dormer's allowed to be English, but everyone else has to do American accents, basically.
Yeah.
Apart from Stanley Tucci, who's the one American, I think, in the cast. I think there might be some others, but everyone. I mean, John Bradley, I saw him in Moonfall recently. He was very English in that.
So was he the computer geek guy?
Yeah, who goes up into space and
I knew he looked familiar.
Yeah, so there's a couple of there's a lot of interesting things about it. I mean, I was looking up because the action sequences are really good. There's a big one of the things you could tell this had a good budget. I mean, there's a big stunt team involved in this.
Yeah.
So very, very lots of people. Lots of very skilled people involved. It's actually the action is shot pretty damn well as well. I think, all considering the darkness of the the setting and stuff. There's some nice set pieces. There's a zombie rat, which is pretty cool, that they throw in. And there's a bit of a crawling through the air ducts, Mission Impossible kind of thing that happens with the rat. But Stanley Tucci basically turns up out of nowhere. Like they basically unzip a body bag and it's Stanley Tucci in there. And then he takes over the movie, and it's like, it's amazing. He's like doing the action and stuff. It's like really good. I mean, Stanley Tucci is he does turn up all over the place. I mean, he's doing like cookery books and cookery TV shows and stuff now. But he also did things like one of the Transformers movies, which was just like, oh my God, so embarrassing. If I recall correctly, he was in one of those. I think he was playing like a knight or something. And what?
I think it was a Chinese scientist.
Oh, was he?
It was the fourth one when it was the dino box.
It's not a good movie, and but anyway, he's really intense here. He basically gets to do a kind of Neo Mr. Anderson kind of conversation, a Matrixy kind of thing, and he has a chat with Matt Smith. Matt Smith, shifting over to him, I wasn't sold at first, but I do think he did well with the role. I went with him I went with it, enjoyed it. I got used to it. I didn't mind his accent. I thought it was pretty solid. They do a very, very quick Hunt for Red October, I should say, at the start. Possibly too quick, where they show him sort of going to try and communicate with the zombie, and then basically just show it as English. So I think maybe they should have lingered a little bit more, but maybe they thought that just sounds stupid in sort of doing this sub Klingon kind of thing. But like you say, Natalie Dormer was good. Say the locations, production design, cinematography, all really good. The film itself kind of reminded me as much of Day of the Dead and 28 Days Later, but also Ghosts of Mars, which is a bit of a favorite of mine. The way that they're having conversations, meeting up with people, doing they constantly having like these flashbacks and side bits going on with the different characters to sort of flesh it out a bit. There's a voiceover narration at the start and towards the end and stuff, which I think if Accident Man is a good example of the voiceover narration, this is a example where it feels really forced, like they added it on. It just doesn't feel very natural. The voiceover part, which runs actually really quite long, it's like over a few minutes in the first part when he's making his way through the complex. The Stand 2, whatever notes I've got. The only other thing I would say that I felt let it down was the ending, because it felt like they didn't know how to end it, and it had a certain. It was sort of like it was kind of like an is that it? Because it was like felt like it was leading on to something, or like there should be another bit, and then they had a little bit of a voiceover, and it's like, oh yeah, and then we went off, and and that was it. And it's also shot like day for night, and really obviously so it's like
that bit was tell that, see that a mile off. I mean,
that was quite disappointing.
To be fair, I always kind of find that with like apocalyptic films or zombie films or something like that, they always kind of end it the same way. You know what I mean? They either get out or
But here
get
there's a
rescued
twist.
or
Here there's a
something.
kind of a twist in the story, but there's not really any kind of. There's not really any. It doesn't really make a lot of sense. There's not really any resolution to why that mattered. So I didn't feel like it actually brought anything to go. It's like, but that's not really. I don't know. That was the one weak point I felt. Everything else I thought was great. It's very brisk. I think it's over in like an hour and a half. The film is actually made by an Austrian director called Stefan Rusovitsky, who's had quite a varied career. But I was looking back through, and I've seen a few of his films, but he did like a World War II drama called The Counterfeiters, very different to this. But he started out in horror, and he did the 2 Autopsy movies. The first of which had Franco Portenta in, was quite a big breakthrough hit at the time. In 2001. Anatomy 2, I think, wasn't as big of a hit, and didn't do as well. But the first one I remember. But Anatomy is basically a slasher movie set in a medical school. And it was really good. And so he's done loads of other stuff. He did a film called Cold Hell, which is on Shudder. One called Deadfall, which had Eric Bana in. Cold Hell, which is like a taxi driver sort of.
That's brilliant. Have you seen
I do really want to see it.
It's really, really good. Yeah,
he's a good director. I think he's got a really good flair for a lot of the stuff. He's also done a TV series I really want to see called 8 Days. He did a couple of episodes of that, and he's got another TV series that he's worked on. He's done quite varied things, but I think he's a safe pair of hands. He's kind of what I'm definitely curious to see some of the like Cold Hell I really want to see, and Deadfall, which I wasn't quite sure about, say the Eric Bana movie, but and stuff. But Patient Zero really caught me by surprise. Wasn't expecting much from it. Stanley Tucci is just left field casting that totally works, and the action, the stunt team did a really good job with all that stuff as well.
Yeah, absolutely. We don't score the throwbacks, but we do recommend you check them out. This one is on Freevee, I believe.
Yep.
So the adverts aren't too
I don't think I got
intrusive.
Any
I did a few, but not many. Yes, so please go check it out. That is the end of this week's show. So thanks to Rich and Steve for joining me.
No problem.
Interesting films this week. If you do get the chance, guys, check out Postmortem. Thought that was very good. Don't forget to check us out on Twitter and Facebook at the DTV Digest, and also check out our sister show, The Short Shots, which the new episode's coming out very soon, or we're going to be recording very soon. Other than that, thanks for listening. Tune in next time.
Thank you for listening to the DTV Digest. Let us know your thoughts in the comments and tune in again next time.